Ryan was used to working in dangerous places, but nothing in his life had prepared him for this. The alien spaceport was huge, louder than any factory he had ever known, and full of creatures that didn't look twice at a human like him. He worked as a cargo technician, moving crates from one ship to another, scanning them for damage and making sure they reached the right owners. It was boring most days, but boring meant safe. And Ryan liked safe. That morning, a shipment from the outer colonies arrived, and his supervisor told him to take it to Storage Bay 47. Ryan loaded the crates on a small hover cart and followed the glowing floor lines toward the storage zone. He didn't notice that one of the directional lights had gone out. Without thinking, he took a wrong turn. Instead of going left toward the public bays, he went deeper into the private docking tunnels. The air here was colder, and the lights flickered in strange colors. It felt wrong, but Ryan didn't stop. After 10 minutes, he reached a large door that slid open with a hiss. Inside was not a storage room. It looked like someone's private chamber walls, covered with silk-like fabric, strange glowing orbs hanging from the ceiling, and a bed made of something that shimmered like liquid metal. Ryan froze. He knew this was not where he was supposed to be. Then he heard it, a soft, broken sound, crying. He looked toward the sound and saw her. An alien girl, sitting on the floor, knees pulled to her chest. Her skin was pale silver, glowing faintly, and lines of golden light ran across her arms and neck like living tattoos. Her long white hair covered half her face, but he could see tears sliding down her cheeks. For a moment, Ryan just stood there, unsure what to do. Then the girl's head snapped up, and her bright amber eyes locked on him. She gasped sharply and scrambled to her feet. "You?" she whispered, voice shaking. "You've seen too much." Ryan blinked, completely confused. I'm sorry, I didn't mean." She stepped closer, trembling. "You have to marry me," she said, her voice breaking. "Marry me, or my brothers will kill you." Ryan thought he had misheard her. "Wait, what?" he said, but her hands shot out and grabbed his shirt, holding him with surprising strength. "They will smell your scent in here," she said quickly. "They will know you saw me like this." Ryan tried to pull back. "Why would that matter?" he asked, her golden eyes filled with panic. "Because the marks you see, the gold lines, they are not for outsiders to witness. It is a family law. If an outsider sees them, he must die, unless he becomes part of the family. The only way is marriage." Before Ryan could answer, a deep voice echoed from somewhere outside the room. It was speaking in her language, fast and harsh. Her head jerked toward the sound, and she tightened her grip on him. "They are coming," she whispered. "Hide, now." She shoved him toward a curtain of thick blue fabric in the corner. Ryan stumbled behind it just as the door slid open. 3 massive alien men stepped inside, each at least a head taller than Ryan. Their skin was the same pale silver as hers, but without the glowing gold marks. They wore armor that looked like it was grown from bone, and each carried a curved blade at his side. One of them barked a question at her, his voice full of suspicion. She shook her head quickly, answering in a soft tone. Ryan couldn't understand the words, but he could hear the anger in the men's voices as they argued. Then one of them snarled something that made the girl flinch. Finally, the 3 turned and left, the door hissing shut behind them. Ryan let out the breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The girl ran to him and pulled the curtain aside. "They don't believe me," she said. "They will come back soon, and next time they will search the room. If they find you, it will be over." Ryan stepped back, shaking his head. "Look, I don't even know you, and you're telling me I have to marry you? This is insane." She stared at him, her face pale and desperate. "It is the only way," she said quietly. "If you refuse, they will cut you down before you take 3 steps. If you accept, I can protect you." Ryan didn't know what to say. His heart was racing, his palms sweating. Part of him wanted to run for the door and take his chances. But the other part, the part that saw real fear in her eyes, made him hesitate. In that silence, the sound of heavy boots began to echo again in the hall outside. The girl's expression hardened. She reached for his hand and gripped it tight. "Choose human," she whispered. "Now?" Ryan looked at the door, then at her. He didn't know what he was walking into, but he knew one thing: he was already in too deep. The heavy boots outside grew louder, each step pounding like a drum in Ryan's chest. He felt the alien girl's grip tighten on his hand, her golden eyes unblinking, as if willing him to make the decision she wanted. Before he could speak, the door hissed open again, and the 3 alien men stormed inside, their armor clinking and blades reflecting the dim light. Ryan froze in place, but she moved fast, stepping in front of him so they couldn't see him hidden behind the curve of the wall. She began speaking rapidly in her language, her tone sharp and defensive. One of the brothers, the tallest, took a step closer and sniffed the air like a predator. His eyes narrowed and his voice dropped low, the words carrying a threat Ryan didn't need a translator to understand. The other 2 began searching the room, kicking aside cushions and throwing open drawers. Ryan's heart pounded as one of them came close enough that he could see the ridges along the alien's jaw. Just inches from his hiding place, the alien's head tilted, his gaze moving toward the shadow where Ryan stood. At that moment, the girl spoke again, louder this time, her voice almost a shout. It startled them enough to pull their attention. Back to her, they argued for what felt like minutes. The brothers didn't seem convinced. One slammed his fist against the wall hard enough to make Ryan flinch. Another pointed toward the far door as if demanding something. She crossed her arms and said something that made all 3 of them grow still. Then the tallest gave a sharp gesture and they filed out. The door ceiling shut behind them. Ryan stepped out slowly, his knees weak. "I can't keep hiding like this," he whispered. She looked at him with a mix of fear and determination. "Then stop hiding," she said. "Bind yourself to me now, and you will be one of us. Their law will protect you." "But we must do it before they return." Ryan shook his head. "You're asking me to marry you because I walked into the wrong room." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to almost a plea. "Because if you don't, they will slit your throat and leave you in the waste pits. You don't understand how serious this is." Before he could argue, she grabbed his wrist and pulled him toward a narrow passage at the back of the room. The walls were rough stone, lit only by faint blue light that seemed to come from veins. In the rock, they moved quickly, her bare feet silent while his boots echoed with every step. Ryan kept glancing back, half expecting the brothers to appear at any moment. They emerged into a small chamber where an old alien stood waiting. His eyes were cloudy, his skin wrinkled like dried paper. In front of him was a low table covered with glowing threads and a bowl of silver liquid. Ryan instantly felt the air grow heavier. "What is this?" he asked. She didn't answer, instead speaking rapidly to the old alien, who nodded once and motioned for Ryan to kneel. Ryan hesitated. "Hold on. I haven't agreed to," but she cut him off. "You have no choice, human. The moment they catch your scent again, they'll come for you. This is the only way." The old alien reached out with trembling hands and draped one of the glowing threads over their joined wrists. The thread tightened like a living thing, sending a strange heat through Ryan's arm. He could feel her pulse against his skin, faster than his own. The old alien began chanting in a deep, slow voice. The silver liquid in the bowl rippled, as if alive. The girl's eyes locked on Ryan's, and for a moment, he saw something behind the fear, a spark of something like hope. But before he could think too much about it, a distant boom shook the ground beneath them. Dust rained from the ceiling. The girl's eyes widened. "They've found us," she said. The old alien didn't stop chanting, but his voice grew faster, the glow from the thread intensifying until Ryan had to look away. The heat in his arm turned into a burning sensation, and he felt a rush of something foreign flooding into him. He didn't know if it was in his blood or his mind, but it made his heart race and his vision sharpen. The boom came again, this time closer, followed by the unmistakable crash of a door. Being torn from its hinges, the girl's grip tightened. "We have seconds," she said. Ryan could hear the sound of armored boots rushing through the tunnels. His mind screamed at him to run, but his body wouldn't move. The old alien's chant reached a final, echoing note, and the glowing thread sank into their skin, leaving no mark except a faint warmth. The girl pulled him to his feet. "It's done," she said. "Now we run," and before Ryan could process what had just happened to him, she was already dragging him toward another passage, the sound of her brother's rage echoing in the tunnels behind them. Ryan's legs burned as they ran through the twisting tunnels, the air thick with dust from the explosions. The faint warmth, where the glowing thread had vanished into his skin, hadn't faded. If anything, it was spreading through his whole body. Every heartbeat felt heavier, sharper, as if something alive inside him had woken up. The girl kept pulling him forward, her grip like iron. Despite her small frame, they reached a dead end, or so Ryan thought. She slammed her palm against a section of the wall, and with a hiss, it split open to reveal a narrow, spiraling stairway made of black crystal. "Down," she ordered, not slowing. Ryan hesitated for half a second. Looking back at the darkness they'd come from, the echo of pounding boots was closer than he'd hoped. So he followed without another word. The stairs ended in a chamber. Unlike anything Ryan had seen before, the walls shimmered with liquid light, shifting like water under the surface. In the center was a raised platform surrounded by shallow pools of silver fluid. On the platform stood a strange device, a frame of twisted metal holding a floating ring of glowing symbols. The girl let go of his hand and stepped inside the ring, motioning for him to join her. "What is this?" Ryan asked, his voice low. "The binding chamber," she said. The Elder's ritual was only the first half. "This will seal the bond so they cannot challenge it." He stared at her, still catching his breath. "And if I don't step in?" "There." She looked at him for a long moment, her voice softening. "Then all of this was for nothing. You'll die, and I will be dragged back to them." The air trembled with the sound of something heavy striking the outer doors. Ryan's chest tightened. He stepped into the ring. The moment his foot crossed the edge, the symbols flared brighter and began to spin around them. A low hum filled the air, vibrating in his bones. The pools around the platform rippled, sending streams of silver liquid rising into the air like living snakes. The liquid coiled around their arms, their chests, their throats, not choking, but holding, and Ryan felt the heat from before flare into something almost painful. His vision blurred, and flashes of images burned into his mind. Strange landscapes, alien skies, battles fought in cities of glass. A sharp breath from the girl brought him back. Her eyes glowed brighter than before, and he could feel her presence in his mind, not as words, but as raw emotion, fear, urgency, and something else. Trust. The ring's glow grew so intense it hurt to look at. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the light collapsed inward and vanished. Leaving them standing in silence, the silver liquid dropped back into the pools, rippling softly. Ryan staggered, dizzy. What did you just do to me?" She stepped closer, her voice calm now. "I made sure you're mine by their law and by the bond. If they kill you, I die too. If they harm me, they harm you. That's the only way to protect us both." Before Ryan could reply, the outer doors gave way with a deafening crash. The sound of boots and angry voices filled the tunnel leading to the chamber. The girl's gaze darted toward the back wall. "There's one more way out," she said. She ran to the far side, pressed her hand to the wall again. and a section slid aside to reveal a narrow maintenance corridor lined with pipes. Ryan followed her through, the heat from the bond still pulsing in his veins. They squeezed through tight bends, climbed over tangled machinery, and dropped down into a dimly lit dock where a small skiff hovered just above the floor. She jumped into the pilot's seat and powered it up. The engines hummed softly at first, then roared as she pushed the controls forward as they shot out into the cold expanse of the spaceport's outer lanes. Ryan looked back to see shadows moving at the dock entrance. Her brothers were there, their armor gleaming, blades drawn. One of them pointed at the skiff and shouted. The girl didn't even glance back. They'll chase us, she said. But now they can't kill you without breaking their own law. Ryan stared at her, trying to process everything: the bond, the glowing marks, the threat of her brothers, and the fact that in less than an hour his life had been ripped out of the ordinary and tied to someone he barely knew. She kept her eyes on the dark stretch of space ahead, her voice steady but quiet. You think this is over, human? It's only the beginning. The skiff cut through the darkness of the spaceport's outer lanes, its engines humming low to avoid detection. Ryan gripped the edge of his seat as the alien girl steered sharply into a narrow service tunnel between docking towers. The faint glow from her skin painted the cramped cockpit in soft gold. But her expression was hard, her jaw set like stone behind them. Faint flashes of blue light flickered, the kind of light Ryan had already learned to fear. They've launched pursuit drones, she said, without looking at him. Small, fast, and programmed to kill without hesitation. Ryan swallowed hard. You're saying they'll ignore the law and just take the risk? She gave a humorless laugh. My brothers think rules are for others, not for them. If they catch us before we reach the inner gates, the bond won't matter. She yanked the controls to one side, and the skiff rolled into a sharp dive. Ryan's stomach lurched as they dropped into a lower sector filled with maintenance scaffolds and heavy cargo haulers. The drones followed, weaving between metal beams with deadly precision. One zipped close enough for Ryan to see its red sensor eye lock on him. He ducked instinctively. Can this thing go faster? He shouted over the hum of the engines, instead of answering. She slid her hand into a recessed panel beside the controls, pressing a hidden switch. The skiff's engine pitch deepened, and they shot forward with sudden, bone-jarring speed. The nearest drone swerved, barely avoiding a collision with a passing hauler. That will buy us seconds, she said, but not safety. The tunnel ahead opened into a massive docking bay, filled with towering repair cranes and suspended cargo pods. She guided the skiff between the cranes with tight, calculated movements. But the drones adapted quickly, splitting into two groups, one chasing directly, the other moving to cut them off. Ryan spotted a crane carrying a massive fuel pod overhead. If that thing fell right now, he began. She glanced at him, then at the crane's control arm, and without hesitation, she tilted the skiff upward. Ryan grabbed a side handle as they shot toward the platform. At the last second, she released the controls and pulled a small alien device from her belt, aiming it at the crane's control panel. A beam of blue light sparked across the bay, and the fuel pod's clamps released. The massive cylinder dropped like a stone, smashing into the bay floor with a thunderous crash. The shockwave rattled the skiff. The pursuing drones scattered, a few slamming into the wreckage. She reclaimed the controls, guiding them toward a narrow maintenance hatch at the far end of the bay. Hold on, she warned. The skiff scraped its sides as they squeezed through, sparks flying. Then they burst out into the cold black of open space. Ryan turned to her, his chest still tight from the chase. You seem too good at this for someone who's supposedly running for her life. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed locked on the starfield ahead. And when she finally spoke, her voice was softer, Because I've been running my whole life, this is just another day, only now. I'm not alone. They drifted in silence for a moment, the hum of the engines the only sound. Ryan tried to process everything: the bond, the law, her brothers, the sudden life-or-death chase. But his thoughts kept circling back to one question: why me? He asked quietly, her golden eyes flicked to him. Because you walked into the wrong room, she said, and because the moment I saw you, I knew you wouldn't run, even when you should. Before Ryan could answer, the console in front of her began to beep urgently. A holodisplay flickered to life, showing a cluster of red dots moving fast toward their position. They're still coming, she said, gripping the controls tighter. We need to disappear now. She angled the skiff toward a dark, jagged shape drifting in space ahead. Ryan leaned forward and realized it was the wreck of a massive ship, its hull torn open like a wound. She guided the skiff inside through a jagged breach, plunging them into the silent, shadowed corridors of the derelict. As the darkness swallowed them, Ryan felt a shiver run down his spine. Whatever was in here felt far from safe, but he understood one thing: it was better than being caught out there. Asterisk. The wreck's interior swallowed them in darkness. The only light coming from the faint glow of the girl's skin and the dim green flicker of the skiff's console. The air felt heavy, stale, as if it hadn't been disturbed in years. The skiff's quiet hum echoed against the twisted metal walls. Ryan kept his voice low. What is this place? She didn't slow as she guided the craft deeper. An old warship from before my time. Everyone avoids it. They say it's cursed. Ryan glanced at the jagged edges of torn bulkheads. The scorch marks on the walls, the frozen remains of shattered control panels, whatever had happened here had been violent, and we're hiding here because... She finally met his eyes. Because even my brothers won't follow us inside. Not willingly, she powered down the skiff completely, letting it drift into a wide-open chamber that had once been a hangar. The silence pressed down on them. Ryan could hear his own heartbeat for the first time since the chase began. They were still, but it didn't feel like safety. It felt like something was listening. Ryan climbed out of his seat, stretching his legs. So, now what? We just wait here until they give up. She stepped onto the hangar floor, her bare feet silent on the cold metal. We wait until they lose our trail, she said. But the bond needs to stabilize. The Elder's ritual tied our lives together. But until the bond is fully settled, you'll feel changes. Ryan frowned. What kind of changes? She tilted her head, studying him like she was seeing something under his skin. Strength you didn't have before. Sharper senses, but also pain if we're too far apart before he could ask more. A faint metallic clang echoed through the hangar. Ryan froze. Tell me, that was the ship settling. She shook her head slowly. No. Her eyes narrowed as she scanned the shadows. Something else is here. They moved quietly toward a dark corridor. Ryan, feeling the strange warmth of the bond pulse harder with every step. It wasn't just in his arm anymore, it was in his chest, his head like a second heartbeat. The corridor opened into what looked like a mess hall. Long tables overturned, chairs scattered, and in the far corner, a door half ajar behind it. Something shifted. A low, distorted growl rolled out into the room. Ryan's stomach tightened. The girl's voice was barely a whisper. Not all the dead stayed dead when this ship fell. Before Ryan could react, a shape emerged thin, too tall, moving with a twitching, unnatural rhythm. Its eyes glowed faint blue in the dark, and its mouth was filled with jagged, metallic teeth. The thing's gaze locked on Ryan, and it let out a screech that echoed through the ruined ship. Back to the skiff, she hissed, grabbing his arm. They ran, the creature's footsteps slamming against the floor behind them. Ryan's mind screamed at him to move faster, but his body felt like it was fighting against the heavy air. The warmth of the bond burned hotter. As if urging him on, they reached the hangar just as the skiff's console lit up again. The girl leaped into the pilot's seat, powering the engines in one motion. The creature burst from the corridor into the open space, shrieking. Ryan swung the skiff's side hatch shut just as they lifted off the hangar floor. The girl didn't look back as she steered them through the wreck's jagged hull and out into open space again. Her voice was steady but low. "Now you understand why no one comes here." Ryan leaned back, trying to slow his breathing. "Yeah, and I think I'd rather take my chances with your brothers." She gave a faint, humorless smile. "You might not get a choice." Outside, in the distance, a faint blue glow was moving toward them again, faster than before. The faint blue glow in the distance grew sharper, splitting into multiple points of light. Ryan's stomach sank. "Those are your brothers again, aren't they?" She didn't answer right away. Her focus locked on the console as she twisted the skiff into a steep dive. The stars above vanished as a shadow swallowed them, the dark curve of a nearby moon. "They won't stop now," she finally said. Her voice calm but edged with something darker. "The bond makes you harder to kill, but it also makes you more valuable. They'll want to break it their way." Ryan gripped the armrest. "And their way is probably not good for me." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Not for either of us." She guided the skiff toward the moon's surface. Skimming low over jagged cliffs and frozen craters, the blue lights above shifted course, following like predators scenting blood. "If we try to outrun them, they'll catch us in open space," she said. "So we make them come to us." Ryan frowned. "That sounds like you're planning a fight." Her golden eyes flicked to him. "I am." They sat down in the shadow of a massive rock spire, the engines going silent. The girl moved quickly, unstrapping a small case from under her seat and opening it to reveal alien weapons, sleek, curved blades that hummed faintly, and a set of metallic spheres etched with glowing lines. She handed him one of the spheres. "Throw it hard. It will know the target." Ryan stared at it. "You're giving me a magic grenade." "Something like that," she said, already strapping a blade to her hip. "Stay close. Remember the bond. If they separate us, you'll feel it, and it will hurt." The sound of engines grew louder overhead, blue light sweeping across the rocks as the brothers' craft descended. 3 figures dropped to the ground, their armor gleaming. In the pale moonlight, the tallest stepped forward, his blade drawn, speaking in a deep, mocking tone. The girl answered sharply, her voice carrying challenge, not fear, without warning. One of the brothers lunged, closing the distance in an instant. Ryan reacted on instinct. Hurling the sphere, it lit up in midair, striking the attacker's chest, and exploding in a crackle of blue energy that sent him sprawling. The girl didn't waste the opening. She moved like lightning, her blade flashing as she met the second brother head-on. Ryan backed toward the spire, but the tallest came for word. Him. The bond burning hot in his chest, the alien swung, and Ryan barely ducked in time. Feeling the rush of air from the blade, he grabbed a broken piece of rock and hurled it into the brother's face. Buying himself a second, the girl shouted something. A warning, just as the downed brother rose again, fury in his eyes. The fight turned chaotic. Blue sparks flashing in the dark as blades clashed and the ground shook under heavy steps. Ryan felt the pain in his chest spike when one of them managed to shove the girl back. Almost out of sight, the sensation was sharp enough to drop him to one knee. She roared something in her own language and charged, knocking her opponent away from him. By the time the last brother staggered back, bleeding from a slash across his chest, the others were already retreating toward their ship. One pointed at Ryan with a glare full of promise, not of mercy, but of return. Then they were gone, lifting off into the sky. Ryan stood there, breathing hard. Please tell me that was the last time we'll see them. She shook her head slowly, her glow dimming in exhaustion. No. That was just the first real fight. Her voice was steady, but there was a shadow in her eyes. Next time, they won't come just for you. Far above. The blue glow faded into the stars, but Ryan knew they weren't gone. They were waiting, watching, and planning their next move. The moon's silence settled around them after the battle. Broken only by the faint hiss of cooling metal from the skiff, Ryan sat on a rock, his hands still trembling. The strange warmth of the bond pulsing through him like it was alive. The alien girl stood a few steps away, her back to him, staring at the stars where her brothers had vanished. They won't stop, she said quietly, not turning around. Even if we cross half the galaxy, they'll keep coming until one of us is dead. Ryan let out a breath. And because of this bond, that means both of us. She finally faced him, her golden eyes unreadable. That's why we can't just run anymore. We need a place where they can't touch us. Or a way to end this. Ryan shook his head. End this. They're your brothers you're talking about. She cut him off, her voice sharp. I'm talking about survival. Human. They made their choice the moment they hunted you. The bond doesn't just tie our lives together, it ties our fates. She walked back to the skiff, powering it up with slow, deliberate movements. The cockpit lights glowed faintly, casting shifting shadows across her face. Where are we going? Ryan asked. She glanced at him. Somewhere I swore I'd never return. But it's the only place left where their law works in our favor. The skiff lifted from the moon's surface, angling toward a faint green light in the distance. A planet shrouded in mist. Ryan felt a strange pull in his chest as they drew closer, the bond warming like it recognized the place. She must have felt it too, because her grip on the controls tightened. This is my family's world, she said. The only place where the council can force them to obey the bond. As they entered the planet's upper atmosphere, lightning flickered through the clouds, casting brief, blinding light over mountains that looked like jagged teeth. The landing platform they approached was guarded by tall alien figures in ceremonial armor. Ryan noticed how they bowed their heads slightly as the girls stepped out of the skiff, not in respect, but in wary acknowledgement. Inside the council hall, the air was heavy with incense and tension. 12 alien elders sat in a circle, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. The girl stood before them, speaking in her language with a voice that carried both pride and challenge. Ryan couldn't understand the words, but he could feel her emotions through the bond defiance, resolve, and something that felt almost like relief. One of the elders, an ancient figure with skin like polished stone, leaned forward and studied Ryan with a piercing gaze. Then he spoke in halting human tongue. "The bond is true," he said. "And by our law, no hand may harm what is now won, but the blood feud remains. And it will end only when the challenge is met." Ryan didn't know what the challenge was, but the girl turned to him, her expression steady. "We have one chance to stop this forever. If we win, they can never come for us again. If we lose..." She didn't need to finish. As they left the hall, Ryan felt the bond's pulse in his chest, stronger than ever. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was a strange, stubborn certainty that whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. Somewhere beyond the misty peaks, her brothers were preparing too. And Ryan knew the final meeting was no longer a matter of if, but when.